Hi, this is Mark from Shutterwax with the second video about mixing in Auria. First of all, thanks a lot for the comments that were left on the various forums about the first video. It means a lot. So I had some questions about using subgroups. So I'm just going to go over that and explain a little bit between the difference between an aux bus and a subgroup and why you would choose each. So I use subgroups to group like instruments together. So if you see here, I have a subgroup for drums, bass, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, keyboards, background vox, lead vox, and the intro lick. I divide them up this way so that I have control over a whole section. So all the drums I treat as one instrument. So I have my individual drum tracks here. So you see I have kick, snare, overhead left, overhead right, and a shaker on this song. But then I can raise the level overall of the drums. I have the blend that I do with the faders for each individual drum. And then I have control over the overall level with this fader. So I'm going to just solo the drums for a minute. So now here, no drums. And I raise it up. Here we go. So if I do a mix and I go check it out in the car or something, then I can say, drums are a little bit too loud. Come in here and pull them down. Then I'm not dealing with grouping the faders, which you could do this way. Let me see, I touch that, and then touch each individual fader, touch that. Now they're all grouped and moving together, but what if I want to change the balance? I'm kind of stuck, so I'd rather not do it that way. So here I ungroup them. So, I get my blend in my drums however I want them. Let's say I want to do that. Okay. Actually, I could turn up the volume a little bit. So I'm going to get my balance here, treat the drums as one instrument now. The drum kit is one instrument. Plus, if you notice, turn down for a second, when I hit solo on the subgroup, all the drums go in solo. I think that's solo safe mode. Right? Now all the drums are soloed in one shot. I don't have to hit each individual channel. So again, it just lets me treat a group of instruments as one specific thing. So one thing that may not make sense here is, why would I use a group for bass since I only have one bass track? I did that for a couple reasons. One, as I said, it lets me control the final balance later if I need to make a quick adjustment. And the other thing is I might decide at some point that I want to duplicate the bass track and maybe put jam up on it or bias or something like that and just get a little bit of an amp sound, since on this track I only use the DI for the bass. So then it allows me to group those together. So again, the bass DI and the bass amp would be just one group. I adjust their balance, and then I can do that. Then adjust the overall balance with the subgroup. So that's one reason I do subgroups. The other thing is on drums. So again, solo them here. So I have the drums soloed, and I might want to put. I love the micro warmer on a drum bus, so I'll put it in place. Alright, here's without it. I'm not sure how much you can hear the difference on here, but definitely the drums sound a lot fatter with this. So that lets me treat, again, the whole drum kit as one instrument. So I would put the micro warmer on the entire drum bus. If I wanted the micro warmer on just the kick, for example, I would put it on the kick channel instead of on the whole group, but I want the whole group to go together, and it just kind of, they use the word like gluing it together. The other thing is, I want to take that out, and maybe I wanted to compress it as a group, or do some parallel compression, which I can do with the mix control. Now it's all compressed. Do that together. Now there's no compression, so do parallel, and some people like to do that. Put some makeup. You hear when I shut the compressor off, you get that. Turn it back on, you get that. Maybe I want to do both, or add EQ to the group as a whole. I probably wouldn't do it that way, but I could if I wanted to. Oh, it wasn't in. There we go. Okay. So that's why I would use a subgroup. So I want to send all the drums through the same effect, and I want to treat the drums as one instrument. Do you have to do that? Of course not. It's just, to me, I find it an easier way to work. I like to use these, as I said, as a final mix control. Now, in some DAWs, you're going to find that buses are all treated the same. So, for instance, on the Mac, I use Reaper, and basically in Reaper, a track is a track, a bus is a bus, whatever. If you create a send to it, it becomes a send. If you just group them together, it just becomes a bus. So sometimes I think that's confusing to people. This is really laid out like an analog mixer would be. So when we're questioning, do I want to use an insert effect? So an effect on a channel, here's our insert slots, put something in there. Or do I want to use an aux bus or a group? You would use an aux bus if it's an effect that you wanted to add different amounts to each track and maybe none to other tracks. So reverb is typically used on an aux bus. So I put the classic verb in here. Not the best sounding example, but it will make the example that we have here. So I'm going to use my aux effect there, okay? And so I put that in aux 1, and you can think of this like you're tapping off the main signal, kind of like in plumbing. If you take a tap off a pipe and you would have a valve, depending on how much you open the valve would say how much water would come out of that particular spot. You can do more or less. So here's your valve. So for instance, let's turn the reverb up on the snare here. Alright, so solo drums there, and you hear how the reverb's only on the snare. And actually, I'm going to put that's a better sounding reverb. So alright, so you hear we have lots of reverb on the snare, but the kick has none. I put some on the overheads too, so I'll take it off the overheads. Alright, and I can send no reverb to the snare, or lots. And then let's say also, excuse me, I wanted to use that same reverb for the vocals, put them in the same space, but maybe I don't want as much reverb on the vocals, so I can send less to them. Okay, so that would be the theory of an aux bus, and certainly when you're on the iPad and your processing is limited, if you started doing this, so you have your snare track, let's say, and you put your reverb on here, okay? And then, oh yeah, well, I would like some reverb on the vocals, and I have 2 vocal tracks, and I put 2 reverbs, 1 on each vocal. Not only am I wasting processing power, but when you think about music in a room, a band's playing together, people aren't playing in entirely separate rooms, right? So sometimes you'll hear that somebody wants a particular reverb on the snare, and a particular reverb on the vocals, and a particular reverb on the guitars, and you can do that. You can use multiples, but when I use more than one reverb, I like to send, if I have the snare going to a reverb that's intended mainly for drums, I'll still send a little bit to that vocal reverb, just again to make the impression that everything's in the same space. A friend of mine who's a mixing engineer I really respect had mentioned on one of my earlier mixes from this album, I had sent it to him to see what he thought, and he said, it sounds like you're trying really hard to give an impression of a band with no effects, and it just sounds very strange. And then he explained to me that using things like reverbs and delays really subtly, and a combination of them, is really how you give the impression that there's no effects, because unless you listen to music in a room that absolutely has no reflective surfaces and no absorbing surfaces or anything, the room is going to affect what you hear, right? So you go see a band in a club or something, you're going to hear the sound of the club in addition to what's coming out of the band's amps. So if you're going for that kind of sound, and in my case, I'm generally mixing music that was played by a band in a space, and that's what we wanted to sound like, that would be appropriate. If you were doing another style of music, it might be entirely appropriate to have reverbs that do not glue things together and all that, and that certainly would be style dependent. I don't really work on much music of that type per se, so that's not the way I would approach it. But that's generally my approach for subgroups. And of course, the subgroups in Auria then feed right into the master. You don't have an option in Auria to route them anyplace else unless you get into some tricky audio bus things, but I've been having trouble getting that to work lately, so but I don't want to get into that. So Basically, if you think about the signal flow, right, you have your tracks, and then you can feed them into subgroups to group them together any way you want, and then those subgroups go to the master. So it's just another stage if you want to affect some things together. Like I said, you put the vintage warmer or something on a drum bus, and then you want to send to the master because you don't want the vintage warmer on every track, but you want it in the same amount on all the drums because they're all glued together. And then an aux would be, I want to send the same effect to multiple tracks, or I want it to affect multiple tracks, but not all in the same amount. So I want a little more reverb on the snare than maybe the guitar, or something to that effect, or, you know, delay, whatever effect you might want. And, you know, in a program with more aux buses, of course, it can give you more options. In Reaper, I'm sorry, I'm not in Reaper. In Auria, you have two, so you make the most of them. And there is a trick where you can route through audio bus, but like I said, I couldn't get that to work yesterday, so I'll go into that another time if I figure out either why it wasn't working, or maybe it's something that changed with audio bus too. But in any event, hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know if there's any questions. You know what? One more thing that I just realized, and this is another thing for subgroups, so sorry, I'm going to extend it for just 1 minute, and I'm going to do something silly here just to make the point, but all right, I'm going to write some automation as we play, okay? So don't stop, 'cause I'm not waiting. It's not a line to we're debating. How long do we wait? All right, so let's just pretend for 1 second that automation actually made any sense, because it's not the way I'm going to automate the drums in this. But once I do that, you know, there's a bunch of automation lines written to the track, and if I want to change the overall level, I have to go back and edit the entire, sit there and edit each point and things. I'm not going to get into that. So if I did that and I said, okay, I like the automation, as wacky as it is, but then I need overall just the whole thing to come down, now I can just pull the fader down or pull it up or whatever, so I can affect around the automation. Go to a place where I did automate, right? So you hear it's going up and down now with this crazy thing I wrote, but I can turn the overall up and down. And that's another reason why I do the subgroups like I do. And I try not to automate the subgroups, so I retain that option later to change things quickly. So, okay, a little add-on there. But in any event, thanks for watching. And again, just let me know if you have any questions. You could subscribe to the YouTube channel. That might be a way to get the new videos. And certainly you can leave any comments there. I'll try to check them. And, you know, ask on the Audio Bus forum or the Auria forum. mrafino1 is my username. So have a good one, and I'll do another video soon. Thanks. I appreciate you watching.